Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic virtual tasting with us at Becker Vineyards. Tonight, we have a star-studded panel for you. We, of course, have our owners, Drs. Richard and Joseph Becker. We have our winemaker, John Leahy. We also have our general manager, Brett Pernew. I'll be staying on this evening, Rebecca Nelson, wine club director, and we've also got Bobby Totten on with us tonight, who is one of our assistant tasting room managers at the winery. So we've got a great lineup tonight. We're also going to be tasting the 3 wines that went out to our White Wines Club members for the month of February. So we have our 2019 White Wing, which is a brand new release. We also have the 2017 Chardonnay Reserve from the Canada Family Vineyard. And we have the 2012 Clementine, which is a beautiful late harvest dessert wine that we have to finish up with tonight. So I'll turn it over to our panel and we'll get started tasting these fantastic wines. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, Rebecca. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I just want to point out that I didn't tell you that we were live.
I was so proud.
Doc, Joe, you want to kick it off with a few words?
Well, you know, we're about 1 year anniversary of this nightmare, and just to repeat what Dr. Fauci said this week, you know, this is not the time to back away from all the things we do to protect ourselves and our friends and our family. That means continue to wear masks, continue social distancing, continue careful hygiene, and get vaccinated. And I think the vaccines are going to become much easier to get. I hope that's true in the next month or so. So if we can make this scourge go away, we just need to get there. And so here's another chance to come out on the terraces in New York and talk about something better than the plague. And it's great to have these wonderful wines to talk about, John, Brett. So let's proceed in that direction. Joe, anything you'd like to say?
I would just add, along with that, always my having children, always appreciation for my children's teachers, for all the teachers out there, for my brother that you know, still wearing masks, still braving the school. The teachers haven't been all really vaccinated, and but thinking about them, thinking about the incredible job. My son had a Zoom science fair this morning, which was a completely new experience, but it was very well done, very educational, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Fantastic.
Very cool.
Here.
Well,
Here.
I think we should kick off. 1, congratulate him on his Zoom science fair, and 2, everybody, pour a little white wing in your glass. We got the 20. So, Bobby, you want to lead us off with the white wing?
So this is very just exciting wine, all estate grapes. So as you can tell right there at the bottom, estate Sauvignon Blanc. So you're drinking fruit exactly from our vineyard right in front. So some of the oldest vines on the property, which just really beautiful, bright floral notes, nice bright acidity, crisp, refreshing. I mean, this is making me ready for summer. I mean, especially after the last week being so cold and freezing. This is getting me ready for summer weather. It really is.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. That ice storm got me ready for summer weather about 6 hours after it started. Yeah, we are. You know, there are stories of people still without power here in Gillespie County. So very grateful that we have ours. But,
yeah.
So, Rebecca, what strikes you about the white wing?
What I love about the white wing is that it has a really great mouthfeel. And I really enjoy that about this white wing. Sauvignon Blanc for me is one that is tricky. I don't love every Sauvignon Blanc. I'm kind of particular when it comes to the Sauvignon Blancs. I really enjoy this one. It has more of that Bordeaux style to it. The white Bordeaux that I really enjoy, and just that really nice smooth mouthfeel is something that I think really stands out about this particular Sauvignon Blanc. I really like that a lot.
Okay, so we're going to take a little side there. Do you still have vines to adopt in the new wine club block up there in the Sauvignon Blanc?
I do.
Well,
yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So our wine club members, for quite a few years now, we've had 3 separate sections that have come up we had 2 brand new vineyards sections that we planted, and wine club members were able to adopt a section of vines or sponsor a section of vines. And so they pay us $150 and they get a plaque with their name on it actually in the vineyard. And they're in the middle of their section of vines. And then, when we're not having to deal with the pandemic as we are, we have events where they come out and get to help prune the vines if they want to. They get to come out and help us test the sugars on the grapes. And then it's just a really cool thing that when you come out to the winery, you can walk through and you actually have this section of vines, with your name on it that you get to see and follow how they develop. And then when we make a wine from those grapes, it'll be first offered to those members that have a section in that vineyard. And we actually were just able to do that for the first time. Earlier this year, we were able to release the 2018 Primavera, which is from the first wine club vineyard block, which was Sangiovese. And the second wine club member block was Petite Syrah. And then the third block, we had some sections up in the Sauvignon Blanc area up front that needed to be replanted. And so when we replanted those, we created a third section for wine club members that are some white wine grapes. So we've got the new Sauvignon Blanc section up front. When you drive down Becker Farms Road, when you turn into our gate, you'll see a little sort of pathway off the road, and you can pull over and park there and walk to the vines. They're in the center of that front vineyard. And so we do still have a few sections in there. If you're interested in getting them, please contact me at the winery. I'll be happy to get your name on a plaque in the vineyard as well.
That sounds lovely. So do we have any special parties that we're going to do for these folks?
All the time. When we open back up, that's all we're doing. Once this thing is through, it's just going to be a party every day at the winery, just like it used to be.
Brett just looked a little more Brett after I said that.
I'm thinking like maybe October, Doc? That sounds like maybe a possibility. We'll see how it goes.
Right. So Brett, since I've been teasing you, what about your take on the white wing?
Well, I just realized that I guess I was the one that screwed up on this and didn't get the word estate on the engraved bottle that takes 4.5 months to arrive at the winery. But it is 100% estate fruit. It doesn't show it on there because we have to order this maybe before we like to, but I thought John was going to put 5% of something else, maybe,
Right.
But these are some of the oldest vines at the winery, and we talk about this a lot. Doc and Joe, you guys planted the Viognier up there, and the Pierce's disease burned through it like a fire. But yet the Sauvignon Blanc prevailed, and there's really no rhyme or reason why it's still there. It just is. Most of this was planted in 1993, with the exception of the block that Rebecca's referring to that we replanted. I think we're going to start going through it at maybe an acre at a time and trying to revitalize that Sauvignon Blanc because it's pretty good. And we think we have some new tools that'll help it, maybe stay alive a little bit longer. But still, a 1993-year-old planted vineyard, we can't like scuff at that. So that's what I like about it. I think that the fact that you guys, John likes to put this in new French oak barrels in a percentage. I don't think that it's all new French oak, but that's kind of part of the story behind this is that we kind of let John and the winemaking team have a leeway to do what they want. And then we get a wine like this, and we kind of say, "Well, that was a good call, I guess." Right?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Yes. So this was in 40% new oak. Was the
John, let's talk a little bit about the history of the grape, which I love. And this is probably a native grape to Southwest France, to the Bordeaux region, Sauvignon means from the word sauvage, meaning wild. It's a kind of a wild native white grape of that part of France, and it's always been one of my favorites. I know you've asked me in the past why I planted. It's because I love Sauvignon Blanc, and it has a lot of different expressions. In New Zealand, it's made fairly green with lots of pyrazine, no oak. In Bordeaux, it's made in oak and with blended with Semillon, which you've done here, and I really love this. You also, John, make just a standard Sauvignon Blanc, which won a double gold medal in San Francisco in both 18 and 19. I'm really proud of those. and a different expression. Tell me how you made those decisions and how you separated the grapes and
Well,
what you
first
think
thing
about
I did is I stole Rebecca's dartboard out of her office.
that. I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that, but I'd
It's
like a
very
real answer.
useful.
Yeah, this one, I think the 19 we actually we did not put any of the semi on it, because we had taken that.
Other than the field blend that's in the vineyard. Remember the
Right. Yeah, the
Right.
Simeon that's out there, and there are a few vines out there, but normally in the white wing we add a little extra, about 3 or 4%. We've done one that was as much as 6, I think. But this particular one, that expression on there, and the reason it's 40% new oak, we had a fair portion of it in brand new oak. We used some of that in a very little bit of that in the market wine, but when we found that we started blending this with the stainless steel portion, and the higher stainless steel really did a nice job on it. So it just turned out to be very beautiful. It was a very simple blend to put together. We had separated that particular Sauvignon Blanc into 3 different lots. Normally we get 3 to 5 lots off of that Sauvignon Blanc, depending on the yeast we want to try, or the barrel program, or stainless. And of course,
or even you guys have chose to do partial versions of it as a whole cluster press.
right.
Or we went to, that's how that kind of decision is standing on the crush pad. You guys kind of switch that as we're going, and there's always about 3 or 4 different lots of this.
Yeah, and it drives Rachel crazy, because she and I spend literally a couple of weeks going over everything that we're going to do lot by lot before we start harvest, and she accuses me of taking that entire spreadsheet and throwing it out the window as soon as the grapes get here.
And it's always the first batch of grapes, which is the Sauvignon Blanc. It all gets torn up and thrown out the window.
Right.
So John, I wanted to just go along the same vein of what Dad's asking you about, because we've had for a long time we made a Fumé Blanc, inspired by Robert Mondavi's creation of Fumé Blanc, meaning white smoke. A slightly more barrel-aged Sauvignon Blanc. But one thing I was curious about is I always feel like you do an amazing job at getting the varietal expression in these wines, particularly these whites, the Sauvignon Blanc.
Mm-hmm.
And you've we don't talk about this a lot, but I was just curious, when you think about American winemakers, great American Sauvignon Blancs, are there some winemakers that have really, you feel like, stand out, really had a lot of influence on the way you produce Sauvignon Blanc?
Yeah, Jed Steele.
Jet Steele.
Right off the bat. A year early on in his career, he was the head winemaker for KJ. And then he leaped off and started his own brand, Steele, wines, up in Lake County in Northern California. And for a long time, it was an all white house, which was extraordinarily rare at that time. So, white wines are not viewed on by most people in the same vein as we do red wines. We tend to class them at a slightly lower quality rate right off the bat, and they're not. But he's the one who he did this Lake County Sauvignon Blanc for a number of years that was just incredible. And being able to talk with him and a few other folks, and another person who really has my admiration is Sarah Gott. Is a great winemaker. You can listen to her, and she's also, by the way, the one that I realized in order to be a great winemaker, you had to have sarcasm. But they're both there were a lot of people along the way.
Sure.
But one of the common threads in that, Joe, in that vein with white wines was temperature, at which temperature does the ferment happen and create. And there's a lag between temperature, sugar, and fermentation, and you get this crossing, this 3-phase that it always, at a really good ferment, will form this really odd shaped egg in that graph. Every great ferment has that same egg shape in there, and temperature is a key there on not getting it too hot.
Sure.
Keep that fruit. And that's all the secrets I'm giving away.
Okay.
So on that Fumé Blanc, Wanted to know.
Content
So
box
this
is in pairing mode,
did-
waiting to
this
pair with your
used to be
device.
called the Fume Blanc, the white wing.
I'm sorry, Bobby.
Was the story is that white wing used to be Fume Blanc?
No.
Fume
Uh,
Blanc
the-
was the market wine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually when we first started, Fume Blanc was one of the primary. It was in a darker green bottle, Bordeaux style, obviously, and it was one of the first wines we really sold pretty regularly out of the tasting room. And then over time it did progress to a market wine, but the white wing actually. I think the first was it 2013 or 2012 that we made our first white wing. It was
12, I think.
it was one of your first.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on whose grapes they were, but it was just such an incredible style of Sauvignon Blanc that we it's in a sense it's one way of thinking about it is it's kind of a reserve Sauvignon Blanc for us. But yeah, it evolved out of a different situation.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. One might say the white wing was a much more conservative approach to Sauvignon Blanc.
That's an inside joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, whoever's running this, hit mute on him. I'm not a host, or I would do it.
I saw you reaching for that button.
Well, but I do think that this is a good example of the Fume Blanc was something that was it's a trend in the wine, in the broad marketplace. But it's kind of hard when you take a $1,400 Allier barrel and put it in distribution for $10. You know what I mean? And so John's taken a portion of this. I think it's 40% new Allier French oak. The rest of it is stainless steel fermented, but you had the opportunity to put all the oak Sauvignon Blanc in this, but when we did our tasting, we actually liked it better with some of the blending back of the stainless steel aged stuff, according to this sheet that I have. So talk a little bit about that, I guess. How did that work?
One of the things is when you use all new Sauvignon oak on a white wine, especially Sauvignon Blanc or Chardonnay, there is a phase at which the toasted notes come out forward of the fruit, and that's about 9 to 10 months in. Then that's at the point where most people feel they've over oaked the wine and they'll yank it out, and you can never get rid of that toasted note. You actually, counterintuitively, you have to let it sit in that barrel for as long as 2 years, so those oak and tannins have a chance to meld, and that toasted note comes down and the fruit goes back up. And that is a quintessential discussion that I find myself in about every. Was it, Doc, January, February?
You're the one that always wants to pull everything out of barrel.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, but yeah, no, there's that point. Well, with this particular wine, it wasn't 2 years in barrel, but it was really nice. It was starting to mellow out on those toasted notes, and we found when we blended it back with that stainless steel, that fruit just came out like a powerhouse. So it was very, very nice.
But John, to my palate, 3 of the greatest wines in the world are Sauvignon Blanc, made in 3 completely different styles. The completely stainless steel produced wine in New Zealand, harvested very green,
Like Cloudy
sometimes
Bay.
even a green reserve, maybe 12 bricks they're holding back to even make the pyrazines more expressed. That's one. The other end of the spectrum is the incredible white Bordeaux from the greatest properties in Graves. Chateau Margaux, Pavillon Blanc, for example, made all in barrel, 100% malolactic fermentation, maybe blended with some Semillon, and then Chablis, which is made in stainless steel, but completely different from the New Zealand stainless steel.
Well, and
great wines,
yeah.
same grape. It's just it's a great. The 3 different styles. A great grape to work with, I think.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. And I really do like, you were mentioning New Zealand, the brand that pops into my head the most frequently is Cloudy Bay.
Sure.
that very, very popular. But when they were
did not pay.
Well,
it really was an introduction to those pyrazines that the American market hadn't had before.
And I think that harkens back to the conversation we had 2 weeks ago in the middle of the snowpocalypse when we were talking about, Brett was picking up some of the pyrazines in the Canada Cab and just talking about, reminding people that Cabernet is, the child of Sauvignon Blanc and Cab Franc, and
right.
The pyrazine expression in New Zealand, if you haven't tried one, is incredible.
Oh, yes, it really is. But let us not forget that the Aussies love their very hopped out beers, so that makes sense. Or I should say the Kiwis, not the Aussies. Yeah. Now I'm doubly in for it now. It's okay. Send all your hate mail to BRET@Becker Wine. No.
Hey, there's 2 T's in Brett.
Yeah, there's 2 T's in Brett. Oh,
Spelling it wrong all these years.
right. So we have a whole bunch here of comments. Yet I'm trying. I guess I've been ignoring them. Have you guys seen any of these? Is there anything we need to address that we've missed?
I think there was a question about why we all have different glasses. Like, I got a Sauvignon Blanc glass. John's got a Pinot. Bobby's got the Becker glass. So
Sauvignon Blanc. Yep.
Yeah, and really, this is an oak Sauvignon Blanc, so I think it actually might be better in the oak Chardonnay glass that I have coming up next. But
yeah, I have that one next.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how they use the glass.
15008
So
25320
yeah, wait. Hey, let's
Write down the phone number. Quick, write it down.
Already got it down.
No, somebody, Gary just said he wanted to comment on how much he enjoyed last Sunday's wine club pickup and everything and stuff. And Gary will never tell Michael how good his food is. We can't do that. So.
The bites are fantastic. And one of the things that we had a lot of people comment on that I think is something that we've learned, or I've learned a lot over the last 7 years that I've been at Becker, is just how much certain pairings can surprise you, and finding these foods that pair wonderfully with a white wine and with a red wine, and it's the same small bite, and those are really surprising and really fun, and a great sort of aha moment that we tend to have when we're tasting them.
Was it the Roussan? Because that's the one that we had the aha.
The Roussan with the beef tartare was like, there's no way this is going to taste right, and then we all were just amazed. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
By the way, scratch my comments on the Chablis production of Sauvignon Blanc, John, and let's go forward.
Did I say anything?
Something about beer, I think.
Poppy beers, yeah.
All right. So if there are no other comments about the white wing, I think we should move on to this beautiful.
To Chablis, yeah. That's what I was saying.
This beautiful expression of Texas Chablis, 2017 Reserve Chardonnay. Oh, wow. Okay, Doc, you're going to have to lead this one off.
Me? No, Joe, you do it.
Gosh, this has a wonderful maybe just a hint of lemongrass. Wonderful, almost perfume nose. This is to me, this has a very Burgundian nose. This style. This is wonderful. I mean, then this is what 4 years old. It's amazing what this has done over time with Miss Canada's fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm actually looking up the neutral versus new oak on here. So this is more in line with what we normally do. Generally, that Sauvignon Blanc was an example of an extremely high amount of new oak versus what we normally do. And this is 20% new oak on this.
So I think that, the amount of time that your wine spends in, and the amount of new French oak is roughly equivalent to the amount of stress that I create by spending time in Dad's wine cellar.
There's a little bit of synchronicity there.
Yes.
Oh my, yeah. So, Rebecca, what do you get off of the nose and the taste?
So one of the things that I really enjoy about this Chardonnay is, again, I like doing these white wine tastings because I would not categorize myself as traditionally a white wine drinker. I'm much more of a red wine drinker. But I really enjoy doing these white wine tastings because I'm always reminded and it just kind of comes back and hits me in the face again that these white wines are fantastic and I really enjoy them, and not to kind of cut myself off. So I'm glad we're doing these to start off. One of the things that I like about this Chardonnay is that there's a little bit of that butteriness, but it's not just that overly super heavy oak, heavy malactic, but there's just that little kiss of buttery note to it that I really like that kind of comes up on the palate.
Yeah, that it's wonderful too because first of all, the grape did not have a whole lot of malic to begin with. Now we did. This is 100% Canada Family Vineyards, the 2017, and our 2018 and 2019 are different reserves. But this, I know the 2018 follow-up, which is an equally good wine, is all 100% talent. So, right. But this particular one, we got Brenda's old block of Chardonnay, the 35-year-old Chardonnay, and then her newer block, and combined it. So it's 93% newer block and 7% older block Chardonnay on this. And the older block does not produce as much malic if we let it mature.
John, what was the ratio again there?
It's 7% of the old block and 93% of the new block.
Okay.
On Canada's.
And I think it may be even older than 35 years, John.
Yeah, it probably is the old block.
Yeah.
Wow.
You don't, but perchance, we always talk about how wonderful 2017 was. You don't have any of the harvest numbers on you by chance, do you?
Why, yes, sir, I do.
I'd be curious.
And we've got, let's see. Oh, actually, not the harvest numbers. I'm sorry. I've got the final chemistry. Let me scroll over here.
That's all right.
I know that in 2017 that the younger block came in at 26 bricks.
Okay.
The older block was just under 25, if I'm not mistaken. And we pretty much kind of put them together to yank them off at the same time. But that 2017, everything came in with a full phenolic maturity, but it also had elevated sugars.
John, there are two questions that I've seen pop up that I think we should address. One, are the doctors Becker eating pecans again? Yes, of course they are. But two, we seem to have confused some folks with regard to Chablis. So you guys want to?
Chablis and Chardonnay are the same. Yes. And trust me when I tell you that there will be a fake bottle of wine at the winery on Saturday. Saying Chablis, and it'll have our Sauvignon Blanc on the other side of it. So, no, but yeah, regionally, France is very tightly controlled about what can grow in what region and be called wine from that region. And Chardonnay is one of those that's in 3 different regions. So and Chablis, Champagne, and Burgundy. And that's it. Beyond those questions, I can't answer anything else. I'm a bit of a pariah when it comes to French wines.
So I'd be curious, Rebecca. You were mentioning it's always interesting to me because my wife's very similar. That you come from a bias of preferring red wines, but is it the Chardonnay that really kind of draws you over to the white side of wines, or?
For me, it's as long as it's a full-bodied white wine, it really brings me over. And so almost all of our dry white wines are very full-bodied. And so I've tried to tell John this before. It would really help me if he would make a few wines that I don't care for. I wouldn't have to drink as many. But he makes a really, he developed such great body in all of our white wines. And I think for me, that's really what it is having that depth of flavor and the multitude of kind of areas that come out as you're drinking it. And that's really what draws me back over to a white wine, that they're not just these kind of one-trick ponies. There's a lot more going on.
Well, I'd like to say that I sacrifice all my time in the gym so that the wine's going to have the body I want to have.
Don't we all?
Now, on the history of this vine, just a little bit.
Yes.
It has a interesting DNA connection to Pinot Noir as one of its probable parents, and a wild grape, white grape Gauvet Blanc of France. And it was first planted by the Cistercians in the 11th century in Chablis, getting back to Chablis. And they dug up all the Sauvignon Blanc and put it in the Chardonnay, and it's really done well. And sorry. So there are Chardonnay. There are all these very great expressions of Chardonnay. There's the Montrachet from Burgundy. There's Carton Charlemagne. There's the great Chablis without any oak. The great sort of basically partially oak Macon expressions, and then the great champagnes, the Blanc de Blancs made from primarily from Chardonnay. Again, it's like Sauvignon Blanc. It has just an enormous range of expression, and I think this is a very nice Burgundian Chardonnay. It should be given the barrels it was in.
Chardonnay,
but it's really, I really like it.
Yeah. Again, overall, it really is. That I think Chardonnay got a bad rap for a few years because a lot of people were making it like a butter slathered oak 2x4. But taking it out of 1-year-old barrels and putting it in brand new barrels a year after fermentation, they were calling it double oaked, and it's just double toasted.
So, John, let's talk about the diacetyl molecule and the buttered popcorn note and that results from fermentation.
You have to be very, very careful with that, Doc, or you get linoleic acid as a byproduct from that if you let it go too long. So, and then you got spoiled rotten popcorn.
Yes.
Oh, that's a lovely descriptor. You need to put that.
Yeah, I think, because we always say that butterscotch is a bad word around here. I think.
Right. I have an entire notebook of bad descriptors. We could start reading.
Is that your middle school math book? Or?
Oh, you have no idea, buddy.
Hey, but John, talk a little bit about, because I'm looking at the blend sheet here. There's 38% Allier French oak. If you take the 1 year and then the 2 year that you use,
and then the 5 year, yeah.
So look at that. So Rachel's got our spreadsheet over here. That's like a 37 million page graph. Yeah. But I think it's interesting that we're talking about oak versus like what are the flavor profiles that you're going for when you use an older oak barrel on white wines versus the new oak, and I think that's what we're tasting. Kind of like Rebecca was saying, it doesn't taste like that chewy, jammy, malolactic, bomb of a Chardonnay. It's got good balance, I think.
So the diacetyl that Doc was mentioning before. So when you get that conversion on the malolactic, that actually picks up a lot of toasted notes. It for some reason it holds on to them. It's like the barrel stains the scent of that malolactic fermentation. And if you're going 100% brand new through 100% mallow, you're going to have an overt amount of toasted notes on that wine. Really need to back it off by looking at, since this was 100% barrel fermented, you need to look at that balance very closely before you start it and see how much toasted notes you're going to pick up versus how many grams per liter of malic do you have in the grape to begin with, what's your conversion rate possible going to be, and then that's going to tell you what your flavor profile may or may not do, but it'll certainly tell you how much toasted notes are going to be picked up. So you have to be very careful about balancing that. That's why I sometimes get a little manic during harvest about, okay, we're getting ready to put this to barrel. Okay, well, I don't have all of these barrels. I'm like, well, then stop. Let's go back and look, and that's what Rachel and I spend a lot of time doing. So if I'm not around, she can say, oh, no, you're not doing it that way. You're doing it this way, because I don't want to deal with that crazy guy at the beard comes in here and starts screaming. So, but that, Brett, to your point, is why you see that those neutral oaks. The Allier is beautiful. First of all, it's tight grain. You're not going to pick up a lot of toasted notes on a tighter grain barrel quickly. That takes years to pick them all up.
True.
Where American oak is a looser grain, you're going to get a lot of those toasted notes early and quickly. That's why American oak, generally speaking, does not like white wine. It's very great for red wines, especially red wines that are going to be less than 2 years to market. That American oak does a beautiful job. That's why it does a great job in Merlot, in Tempranillo, Cabernet, not in Chardonnay, not in Sauvignon Blanc. That's why we only use French oak on the white wines. That's more talking than I've done in a long time, guys. You're gonna have to say that. And thanks, Gary, for making fun of me. Apparently, I have a new TV show, but not without a SAG card, buddy. So, anybody else want to comment on this?
Well, Bobby, we've been serving this one in the tasting room for quite a while. What's the typical reaction that you get from people in the tasting room on the Chardonnay?
They're very surprised because, I mean, a lot of people, they go to that preconceived notion of the oak bomb, and they're like, no, we don't like Chardonnay. We want to kind of steer away from that. We're red people, whatever. It's like, hey, if you haven't experienced our Chardonnay, if you haven't experienced, Becker Vineyards Chardonnay, you need to do that. Like, would love to, steer them in that direction of, we're not just known for reds, we're known for white and reds, and we do a good balance. So after, they experience our tasting and I say, well, how do you enjoy that? They're blown away. They're like, there is a great balance. You get the fruit, you do get a little bit of the oak, and it's not overpowering. So get a really good expression out of a lot of people that come out and enjoy these wines.
I think that's one of my favorite things in the tasting room is convincing somebody to give a wine a try that they're, kind of like, I don't usually like that. And then having them be really surprised and absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things. I love that. I love opening people up to more wine.
It's funny you say that, Rebecca. That was always, even from the very beginning, that was always something we enjoyed. And, we were just starting and having, people come into the tasting room and, it felt like, they'd come in with a friend and they felt like they'd sort of been drug into a Texas wine tasting room, and they're above this somehow. And then tasting what we can do in Texas was always a shock to them. But I agree. It's a very fulfilling, and it's amazing we can do that with Texas wine.
Right.
Absolutely.
Several years ago, I went back to California to visit friends and stuff. I was for one of the shows, and we were out there, and I had brought some Texas wines with me. One of them was a Chardonnay. Sauvignon Blanc was also there. Went to an old group meeting that I used to go to for winemakers, and without thinking, one person asked, so how do you taste Texas wine? And I picked up a glass, I put a handful of dirt in it, and I said, first you have to taste this, and then you can taste this. But if you want to taste this and you can taste this, then you'll taste this within this, and it's the same as California wine. But it's funny because they hear, a lot of people hear Texas and immediately kind of like, what, you grow grapes there? And I'm like, yep, that we do.
Yeah.
For people out there watching, it's always a fun thing to do a blind tasting with your friends, especially friends from out of state. Buy some of our wine, buy some wines from California, and your friends will be shocked.
Yeah, but please, you must predicate this, since we are dealing with some Texans here. Just put a blindfold over your friends. Don't actually blind them. So I absolutely love dealing with Chardonnay, and I have to tell you, as much as I love the 17, the 18 coming behind it, even though it's a different vineyard, is a powerhouse of a wine. So we've got a couple of good follow-ups on this. So if you all enjoy the Chardonnay, I think you're going to very much enjoy the next one behind it.
Is that Drew's vineyard?
Has not been released yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't?
No.
Why?
But that's Drew Talent, correct?
That's it. We're done.
Mute again. Mute.
Kaylin with the mute. Come on.
I'm building interest.
Yeah, right.
That's the wine that that's the wine that Rachel made, was the
Yeah.
Chardonnay. So that's coming up, and I really want to say good things about it because she's damn good at what she does, and so it's a good wine.
Well, I do think it's fun that at some point in the next couple of weeks, months, we're going to have 2 Chardonnays side by side.
Right.
And we've been able to do this over the last couple of years. And I always, everybody keeps asking, when's the Reserve Tempranillo going to come out? Well, we're holding back for a reason, right?
Right.
The
I have a
Reserve,
list.
yeah. There's a reason. There's a reason behind it, but it is fun when you can try 2 wines side by side and just kind of see what each. And in that case, where you're trying the candidate Chardonnay versus the talent Chard, High Plains versus Hill Country, I think it's got a premise that could be a great taste-off that we can have against some Chablis from France and some other places. Maybe we'll see.
Absolutely.
We have to have the Chablis with the Sauvignon Blanc, Brett.
That's right. Yeah.
And maybe if you all would unlock Rachel from the cellar.
No.
That's where she does her best work. We have to keep her there.
Exactly. Okay. Are we ready to move on? Yeah. Brett's just. We have a very beautiful 2012 late harvest Sauvignon Blanc. And if you haven't poured yourself a little bit of this, you need to. This is a brilliantly rich.
Speaking of Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, Chablis. Thanks. I'll never get over this.
Nope.
Nope.
No, Doc, the beautiful thing is you will, the next time one of us makes a faux pas, it'll all be forgotten.
Yeah.
Give it another 5 minutes.
Brett has already ordered the t-shirt.
Yeah.
I can see it, unfortunately.
Oh, goodness. So, Brett, would you like to lead us off with the question?
It's going to say, hey, John, it's going to say snow globes equals Chablis.
Thanks, buddy.
Is this the Christmas wine, John?
Yes, sir. This is the Christmas wine. That's why I said give it
Do I
5
turn it
minutes.
over or
So, John, what do you got to say about this wine?
Pure genius. I really like the nose on this. It's very interesting.
Don't be distracted, John. It's never the nose.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the funny part is I made a brilliant mushroom dish with this wine not too long ago, so I'm very much enjoying it.
what did you do?
We crowded the mushrooms into the pan like Julia Child told you never to do with butter. Let them brown until it was almost dry. Then poured a half a bottle of this on there, flipped them over and let it go almost dry until it was very thick, and then served them on top of steak. Just saying.
Wow.
I can do that.
So, what do you think, Brett, of the Clementine?
Well, I love the notes of. I mean, what's crazy, John, is that the first time we put this in a barrel.
Okay, here we go. So the first time we put this in the barrel, yes.
You know, this was on a shelf at HEB at one point, wasn't it?
Okay. Yes. How delightful. Rebecca, let's
Segue. Where's the segue?
okay.
What are we doing next week?
Next week we're doing all red wines. The Clementine, I will say this, was one of the first surprise wines for me that Becker made. I had a different sort of wine journey in starting to drink wines. I never did the whole sweet wine start. I started with dry whites and went to red and kind of have stayed there. And sweet wines is something that really John's wines have brought me to. because they have so much more going on than just the straight sugar component. And the Clementine was one that we served at the very first wine dinner that I went to with Becker Vineyards, and I was hesitant and kind of nervous because I was sitting at a table with a bunch of guests, and I didn't want to be like, ugh, sweet wine. And it was amazing. And it was served with peach cobbler and ice cream. And I wanted them to just bring me the pan of peach cobbler and a bottle of the Clementine. I wanted to pour it over the peach cobbler and just eat it all together, because that to me sounds fantastic. But I'm just amazed that when you have a sweet wine and you pair it with a sweet dessert, it's not overly sweet. I don't understand how that works, but it does, and it's phenomenal. And it really is a wonderful, wonderful treat. We have this actually paired, one of the small bites for the pickup party is paired with this, and it's a coconut banana with some cherries jubilee and little chocolate chips, and it's and a granola crust, and it's fantastic. All the sugar together somehow works beautifully.
Especially.
Well, I think a lot of times we forget that we like, like you're referring to, like a lot of people don't have 3 wines with dinner at their house.
It's weird.
So I tell Chris, I'm like, we need to kick it up a notch. This should be 4 nights a week here at our house. We should have 3 wines and 3 courses. But at the same time, what's crazy about the dessert wines to me is that when you have them with the right dessert, I think this goes like apple tart, like it cuts that acid. And then the one you're describing that we have that's got all the granola in it with all the different. I think Michael said that they put every like pecan, pistachio nut in the planted in that granola that they're pairing this weekend with the bites. It's crazy how when we try these sweet wines with dessert, you're like, holy cow, I like dessert wine. And when normally we wouldn't order it on a menu, I guess, unless we're having a 3-course dinner. We have to pick up our game, I guess, a little bit, but this goes so well with, and I really think you could probably grind up that granola that has very little sugar, and this would just rock it with all those different flavors. Because again, John, the toasted notes in this are crazy because it went to barrel twice.
What I want to say about this wine is that I'm really responsible for the history of this wine, and that is that John made a Sauvignon Blanc that was so brilliant. It was as good as the 2 that just won. The last 2 vintages won double gold medals in San Francisco. This Sauvignon Blanc was that good. And I persuaded him to give it minimal treatment, minimal everything, minimal stabilization, minimal everything, because it was so good. And so we bottled it, we sent it out, and some of the natural acid crystals began to form in it, the snowflakes.
And it said Chablis on the label.
But it was an absolutely great Sauvignon Blanc, and we decided that in the market that people wouldn't understand the crystals. So John brought it back, and he always took responsibility for this. I really think it was
It really wasn't the stability issue aside.
But John, I want to remember how good that Sauvignon Blanc was. It was special.
It was good.
So we brought it back and we put it through some tanks and we oxidized it and now made this brilliant brilliant sweet wine. So, but the history is just that. And kudos twice, John, is what I say.
Well, that double barrel, Brett, the second time was a neutral. Yeah, so it got exposed in that freeze, that pallet, and we decided since that pallet had flaked that we brought the last few pallets back.
Uh-huh.
It was well into its tenure out in the marketplace when we yanked it back because of stability, the tartrate stability. Yes. Would you put Clementine in the freezer, not drinking whole bottle tonight? Absolutely, I would.
Trust me, it will not throw any tartrates.
Nope, that is stable as stable can be.
But John, how long, because this is a higher sugar and higher alcohol, this isn't one that in 2 to 3 days will be over oxidized. So you don't have to throw this in the freezer right away. But
you can keep it on your counter for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
I say 2 months at least.
Yeah. It really will stay out there. It's more akin to a white port or a, not quite a Madeira, but a white port style. So yeah, it'll stay out on the countertop for quite a while.
So
Bobby, oh yeah, go ahead.
would it be correct to kind of almost like, make it be like similar to like a Sauterne, like a,
Well, yes and no. I mean, a Sauterne, this did not have the noble rot on there. It did not have a higher acernic acid content in there. That's what gives that noted flavor to a Sauterne. So, but no, it did not have any of that. So it is more akin to a port, not a Sauterne.
okay.
If we would have waited about 3 more days, it would have had a lot of noble rot when we picked it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But John, describe exactly how you made this wine then. So you had the Chablis with the with the tartaric acid crystals out. Did it go to barrel? How did you let it oxidize so beautifully? What did you do?
And everybody wonders why we're chuckling, because Doc frequently, before he gives you a zinger, will start a conversation exactly like
Now,
that.
come on, that's not true.
When we decanted the wine, we actually put it back through a mild amount of stability in the tank, and then from there we oxidized it several months in the tank, and then put it to barrel when it got warmer outside. Put it into partial filled barrels, and then we stuck it away for, until we bottled it this last year. So, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was stuck in barrel, partially filled, oxidizing for a better part of 8 years. And then we just let Mother Nature take its course with that. So we did fortify it because we knew we were going to make a dessert wine out of it. And then the alcohol acts as all the preservative it needs.
So John, 8 years in barrel?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or 9?
Yep, almost 9. Yeah.
So here's an 11-year-old Sauvignon Blanc that's just pristine.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is really nice, and it doesn't go with just dessert either, though. That's what it is paired for. That mushroom dish I made, it made it a beautiful accent to a savory dish, and a little bit of this as an aperitif before dinner is also a beautiful thing.
A little bit of this for breakfast is also quite nice.
Cornflakes.
With waffles.
Little chocolate donuts.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of food, Bobby, pick a wine and pair it. What would you pair one of these wines with?
Cheeseburger in paradise, Bobby. Start there.
How's it, Jimmy?
I was thinking the Chardonnay and popcorn.
That's all right. That would be very good.
That'll be mine. Chardonnay and maybe a kettle corn.
Oh, that'd be kind of nice. Yes, Angela, Malmsey will last on the shelf just as long, if not longer, open. So, Rebecca, what would you pair wine with? One of our wines this evening.
I'm going to take the 2019 White Wing, and I would love that with Dungeness crab. We had actually talked about this earlier. I love that with Dungeness crab any day, all day long.
Yeah, I'm going to be there right there.
And I don't share. If I order crab, I don't share.
Brett?
All right, so we're rewinding back to our days at Unified in California at a place called Ella that had a noodle dish with some prosciutto on the top of it and a little bit of egg that was busted. And I feel like that the White Wing would be like lights out with that thing. And like Chris actually said one time we went there, do you think that'd be offended if we ordered a second dish? And I'm like, nope. It was good. But it had pasta, it had a lemon sauce on the top with a little bit of prosciutto, and that would be great with that Sauvignon Blanc, I think.
Oh, right on.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, Joe, what would you do?
The two things I was thinking about for the White Wing, we're making a panko crusted salmon tonight. I thought would be good with that. Mm-hmm. And then I actually think creme brulee would be good with the Clementine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right, sir. Doc?
Are you picking up the amazing delicacy with of this Sauterne? It's not, just how subtle it is, and I think this would be a great foie gras wine.
Yeah.
Yes, it would be good with foie gras.
Yeah.
What isn't good with foie gras?
I don't know, but if I find out, I'll let you know. Yeah, absolutely. Foie gras. Now I want to go to Otto's. I'm just saying.
Weird.
Growers.
Hey, I could be there. I could be there in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
There.
What are we doing next week for the wines, Rebecca?
So next week we're doing the wines that we sent out to our Red Wine Club, our Red Premier Wine Club members. And so that's going to be the 2017 Malbec Reserve, which is all from the Talent Vineyard, and also the 2017 Ranger Haze. And the third red wine is the 2017 Inverno. So that's one of the La Quattro Stagioni blends that are traditionally wine club member only wines. So 3 fantastic red wines to taste next week. If you haven't ordered them yet, or if you're not a red wine club member, join, get your wines, call us up. We'll get them to you and you'll have them in time for the tasting next week, which should be fantastic.
And Rebecca, other people can order this also who are Red Wine Club members?
Yes, they're on the website as
Okay.
a bundle. You can go on and order. Next week is week 49.
Wow, we're getting close to a year old.
Wow.
We are.
Yeah. So Linda just asked, I joined late. Is this white Chardonnay? As the whitest Chardonnay? We did all white wines tonight. So just to recap for anybody who's curious, we did the 17 Reserve Chard, the 19 White Wing, and then the 2012 Late Harvest Sauvignon Blanc, or as we like to call it, Christmas wine.
It would be good. When John comes down the chimney.
Yeah. I'll have a pack of these with me. Yeah. Please don't call the police. All right, everyone. That's a wrap for this week. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thanks for participating in the conversation. And as always, we wish everyone a great week, a good glass of wine. Stay safe. We'll join you all next week.
Bonsoir, mes amis.
Cheers.